It looked abandoned, but it wasn't empty. It was supposed to be a simple exploration, just another abandoned building documented for a YouTube channel that barely scraped a few hundred views. 23-year-old Darren was no stranger to urban ruins, but something about the old Westbridge Insurance headquarters gave him a sinking feeling even before he stepped inside. Armed with a GoPro strapped to his chest and a handheld camcorder for extra angles, he squeezed through a side window, crunching broken glass underfoot. The first few rooms were empty, walls yellowed and torn, the air heavy with the smell of mildew. But the deeper Darren went, the more he noticed strange things. The layout made no sense. Hallways looping back in impossible ways. Doors leading into rooms far larger than the building's exterior could explain. At first he assumed it was his imagination playing tricks on him, or perhaps the building's decay shifting structures around. But when his GoPro began glitching, distorting the footage into jagged flashes of movement he hadn't seen with his own eyes, the reality set in. He wasn't alone. Every now and then, in the background of the footage, just for a frame or two, something tall and colorless could be glimpsed standing just at the edge of a corner or slipping silently into a side door. Darren, unaware of the looming presence, pressed forward, deeper into the building. The fluorescent lights above buzzed irregularly, some popping and dying as he passed underneath. He started marking his path with pieces of torn fabric, tying them to doorknobs and pipes. But minutes later, he found those same markers impossibly far ahead of him, as if someone or something had moved them. His breathing grew sharp and quick, captured perfectly on the camcorder audio. Doors that he had left open were now closed. His reflection in dusty glass windows seemed just a split-second delayed. Then, in a deserted conference room, Darren found something that shattered his remaining calm. A table covered with hundreds of small, decaying Polaroid photographs, all of different people, caught mid-run, faces twisted in terror, some even looking like they were mid-scream. In the corner of each photo, barely visible, was the outline of a tall, faceless entity reaching toward them. Darren backed away, but a low, vibrating hum filled the air. A sound so deep he felt it in his chest more than he heard it. His camera caught flickers of motion all around him, blurred figures rushing just out of the beam of his flashlight. With panic setting in, Darren bolted for what he thought was the exit, but each door he opened led to another identical hallway, slightly more warped than the last. As he turned a corner, he slammed into something invisible yet solid, falling backward hard onto the filthy carpet. His camcorder, skidding across the floor, caught a final chilling image. A tall, pale figure emerging from the shadows, arms too long, neck bending at an impossible angle, its featureless face somehow conveying pure hunger. The footage ends with Darren's terrified gasp growing fainter, the camera slowly tilting to catch the ceiling's flickering lights before cutting out entirely. His body was never found. Only his camera was, left just outside the building's crumbling entrance, still recording static, as if daring the next explorer to step inside. I had always heard the rumors about the Backrooms, whispered tales on late-night forums, shaky videos of endless yellow corridors, and stories about people vanishing without a trace. But they always felt like internet myths, the kind you read at 2 a.m. and forget about by morning. Last summer, that changed forever. My friend Marcus and I had a small YouTube channel where we explored abandoned places, malls, hospitals, old factories. The more isolated, the better. We weren't looking for anything supernatural. We just loved the eerie beauty of forgotten spaces. One weekend, we heard about an abandoned storage facility on the outskirts of town. Half collapsed, no security, perfect for filming. We grabbed our cameras, flashlights, and headed out just as the sun began to set. When we reached the facility, the place was worse than expected. Rusted metal doors hanging off broken hinges, shattered windows, and graffiti-covered walls. Perfect. We spent the first hour filming typical footage. Broken furniture, old boxes, a dead silence hanging in the air that made every footstep sound like a gunshot. But then, near the back of the facility, behind a stack of moldy pallets, Marcus found something. A small, almost hidden service door. It was metal, slightly ajar, but there was no handle, No signage, nothing. It looked wrong somehow, like it didn't belong to this world. We exchanged a nervous glance, but curiosity won. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply. The walls immediately shifted. No longer concrete, but stained yellow wallpaper stretching in every direction, with a low, constant hum vibrating in the air. The carpet under our feet was damp, almost sticky. I pulled out my phone to check for a signal. Nothing. We assumed it was just some weird maintenance area or underground level no one talked about. We joked nervously as we filmed, pretending not to notice how each hallway looked exactly like the last. 10 minutes passed, then 20. We made dozens of turns, yet everything remained the same. It was like the building was folding in on itself. It wasn't until Marcus reviewed some of our footage that the real fear kicked in. In the background, barely noticeable, there was a tall, blurred shape lingering at the end of the hallway. It wasn't there when we filmed, but now, frame by frame, it was moving. Closer. I laughed it off, said maybe it was a camera glitch, but deep inside, my hands started to tremble. We decided to backtrack, to find the exit. But when we turned around, the door we had entered through was gone. In its place, another endless hallway. Marcus started calling out, his voice echoing strangely, almost as if the walls themselves were mocking him. The hum grew louder, almost like breathing, and that's when we heard it. Soft, slow footsteps behind us. We spun around, shining our flashlights down the endless corridor. Nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched was unbearable, like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. We ran. No plan, no direction, just pure animal panic. Every corner we turned, every hallway we sprinted through looked the same. Yellow walls, buzzing lights, damp carpet. Time stopped making sense. Our camera captured everything. The fear in our voices, the shaking hands, the desperate pleas to each other to stay calm. At one point, Marcus screamed. He said he saw something, not in the distance, but right next to us, slipping into the shadows like smoke. I didn't see it, but I felt it, a cold rush of air that smelled like rotting drywall. We tried marking the walls with a pocket knife, but every time we made a mark, the wall seemed to heal itself when we looked away. We were trapped. Hours, or maybe minutes, I don't know anymore, passed in a blur of fear and exhaustion. My legs started to cramp, my throat dry from screaming Marcus's name when we got separated. And then, blackness. The next thing I remember is waking up face down in a muddy drainage ditch outside the facility. It was morning. Our gear was soaked. Our camera was still recording. But strangely, the last hour of footage was missing, replaced by static. No one believed our story. They said we got lost, hallucinated from dehydration. But sometimes when the world is too quiet, I still hear it, the mechanical breathing. And I swear the corners of rooms seem just a little too deep, a little too dark, like something could slip out at any moment and drag me back. It started as a simple challenge. My younger cousin Adam dared me to spend an entire night in what local kids called the infinite basement. It was an abandoned office building just outside the city, scheduled for demolition. They said the basement was different, that once you went deep enough, it didn't end. Like the walls themselves shifted behind your back, trapping you. I didn't believe in ghost stories, but the thought of an endless, shifting basement, it intrigued me. I packed light, a flashlight, a power bank, and my camera. Just for laughs, I thought. Getting in was too easy. A broken side door led straight into the decaying lobby, the air thick with mildew and dust. Graffiti covered every surface. The real challenge began when I found the stairwell leading down, a gaping, dark mouth in the floor. As soon as I stepped onto the first stair, the air grew colder. It smelled metallic, almost like blood. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I pushed forward, each step creaking under my weight. The first basement level looked normal. Cracked tiles, collapsed cubicles, forgotten papers scattered like autumn leaves. I filmed everything, narrating sarcastically for the camera, joking about finding treasure. But as I moved deeper, something shifted. The rooms became larger, emptier, wrong. The walls seemed to stretch away from me, and no matter how far I walked, I could never quite reach the next doorway. I laughed it off, blaming my nerves. But when I checked the footage, my laughter caught in my throat. I had been walking toward the same door for nearly 15 minutes, and it never got closer. Panic set in. I tried retracing my steps, only to find corridors I hadn't seen before. The walls began to pulse slightly like breathing. I swear I heard whispers just behind me. Too faint to understand, but close enough to make my skin crawl. I sprinted blindly, turning corners at random, my flashlight flickering violently. That's when I found the camera. Not my camera, an old battered VHS camcorder, lying abandoned in the middle of a hallway. Curious, or maybe desperate for answers, I picked it up and played it back. The tape showed a boy, maybe 17, exploring the same basement. His footage was frantic, blurry, filled with terrified gasps and desperate prayers. In the last moments, the boy screamed and dropped the camera. Just before the screen went black, a tall, shapeless shadow moved across the frame, almost gliding. I felt something shift behind me. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Instead, I ran, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. The corridors twisted unnaturally, the lights overhead buzzing and exploding one by one. In my panic, I stumbled and fell hard against the cold tile, bruising my ribs. Lying there, gasping for breath, I finally saw it. A figure, impossibly tall, faceless, and dripping with darkness, slowly approaching. Each of its steps sounded like wet cloth slapping the ground. It didn't rush. It didn't need to. I was trapped. Summoning every ounce of strength, I scrambled to my feet and sprinted toward a flicker of daylight far ahead. The figure's footsteps quickened. I could feel it reaching for me, the coldness wrapping around my ankles. At the last second, I threw myself through a collapsing doorway and tumbled into blinding sunlight. I woke up outside the building, covered in dirt and bruises. My camera was gone. Only the battered VHS camcorder remained, clutched tightly in my hands. No one believed my story. They said the building had been sealed for years, that no one had been inside. But every time I look at that old VHS tape, I swear I can hear the whispers growing louder, calling me back. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I can feel the cold hand reaching again. If you felt the chills crawl down your spine during these stories, imagine what else is hiding out there, just beyond the walls we trust. Don't let the darkness win. Subscribe now for more terrifying true horror stories. And if you made it this far, prove you're one of the brave ones. Smash that like button and share this video with someone you dare to challenge into the unknown. Trust me, the Backrooms are only the beginning.